Here we go. Ready? Welcome to the Lincoln City Council meeting of March the 16th, 2015. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a period of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with LB 898, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the back of the chamber. The order of business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Please spell your name. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meetings of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date, nor planned for a future agenda. This is not an open mic night. Teresa, first item, please.
Yes, our first item would be our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 5.
Questions? Staff questions? Next item, please.
If not, we can vote on these items. Items 1 and 2 were introduced by Christensen.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Trent. Discussion. Call a roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Feller,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next are our public hearing resolutions. Item number 6, authorizing acceptance of the low bid to Bryn and Jones, which is in excess of 25% over the estimate for the 36th and Gladstone Paving District number 2631.
Chairman, members of the council, Roger Feigert and Aaron Sokolick representing Public Works. When we were here, I think council had some concerns just about the numbers and particularly some of the costs for the two properties that are being used primarily as residential. He asked us to go back, I think, sharpen our pencils, see what kind of things we could do, as well as trying to meet with the property owners, make sure they were aware of what originally had been estimated and then where we were today. We did have that meeting last week. I was unable to attend. Erin was there, so I'll have her give you a quick update of who was there and kind of what happened in the meeting.
All right. Like Roger mentioned, we had the meeting last week.
Just
Five.
do me a favor.
Yes.
Identify yourself
I'm
for
sorry.
us. Thank
Aaron
you.
Sokolick with Public Works.
Thank you.
5 of the 7 property owners attended the meeting. We went over the project, what had changed, why, how the numbers came about. We explained that. They had some questions regarding maybe some things that we needed to take a look at as far as removing some paving on the end of the project. And they were wondering about maybe subsidizing the water items that previously we had not included that as a city subsidy. So we went over those items. They shared their concerns with the amounts and stuff like that. So that's basically all it was, is we just discussed with them where we were at. So.
Okay.
So we're here to go over some of those items. I would say again, as Aaron said, I went back through and I checked water items, sanitary sewer items, and storm sewer items that I felt that it was legal and or appropriate for the city to subsidize or pay for and not assess those costs. So we've removed about $58,000 or $59,000 worth of those improvements then that would be picked up by the appropriate utility. And
So Roger, do you have a handout to show what those numbers are?
for you, no. I've got a sheet here. I didn't.
That's not us yet.
I did not.
Working on it, but I don't have it for you.
Yeah, why am I shocked? But I mean, it makes it impossible, kind of. I mean,
Well-
it makes it difficult to vote unless you can see what those numbers look like.
Okay. What I did do, that Aaron did for us, we'll see what we can get on a sheet here.
Roger, if I may, so we're all on the same page, maybe just go through again, or Aaron, on the project, how many property owners involved, frontages, the total cost you thought, and now what you're saying the city would subsidize, and then what would be allocated to this residents and maybe the property owners, and how much per property owner.
Sure.
That's what you're looking for.
This sheet that we've got here lists. For owner number one, which is 3300 North 35th LLC, in the original, we had estimated their assessment would be just a little over $46,000. After we've removed items, and with the bid, it'd be $55,500. So an increase of just about $9,000 or $10,000.
How much again originally, please?
46. Can I just round them off? 46.4 thousand.
And you lowered it to 55,000?
And that's
That's the
heirs.
difference. The 46.4 was the estimated assessment amount at the time the council ordered it created and constructed before we had done the engineering. That's part of why we're back, okay? Jonathan?
Can I just get a clarification? Okay, so the 46 was the original. You had a number that was much higher than that, which you came to us with,
Yes.
and we discussed last time,
Yes.
last meeting. And now you have this new 55 number. What would that number have been before it became 55.5?
Not sure I broke it out that way, but let me go through those and then
Okay.
we can.
And I'm just, okay.
The original total project cost was estimated at $295,000. Our total bid plus the items that, plus the items that we subsidized, the total cost come in just right at $412,000. So it went from 295 clear up to 413. And we have subsidized and subtracted back out down to $353,200. Differences we're showing you are after we had tried to get the cost back down a bit.
So out of cur-
Maybe the more important thing would be for the two residential properties, track 2 and track 3. Jay Standley, we had estimated his assessment to be $7,700, and now it's estimated to be $9,200. For property number 3, for Beeman, Ron Beeman, we estimated his his assessment to be $35,000. It's now just under $42,000.
Okay, just under 40, under,
41.
oh, 41. Okay.
So it went up about $7,000.
And that's because it's on the corner?
And it gets part of a double assessment.
Okay.
You would also ask that about what would the cost perhaps have been if we'd have done it as residential type paving. We went through and we did an estimate, and the 41.9 or the 42,000 that I just mentioned for Ron Beeman, if that had been a residential, that
Thank
would
you.
have been 27.7, about $14,000 less.
Is that with or without a $50-some thousand city subsidy?
It doesn't have anything to do, we'd already taken that out. This is just an estimate of what the cost of residential width paving would have been, to give you an idea of the difference between a commercial assessment and residential. I would remind you, and Don Todd is here, we can't have two different rates on the same district. If the council believed that it was appropriate to subsidize or reduce the proposed assessment on those two pieces of property, that could be done at Board of Equalization when this body would set to assess those costs. But I don't think there's any way for you to legally make an adjustment here today to assume or to predicate what the Board of Equalization would do probably in the fall of 16. For Jay Stanley's property,
Is that
But I-
number 2?
No. Oh, that'd be 3.
track 2,
Oh, sorry.
that I just told you, the original was 7,700, the new one is 9,200. A proposed residential would have been 6,100. So it would have went down about 3,000, and Mr. Beeman's would go down about a little over 14,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Feiger, just so I got it straight.
Okay.
These last figures of the reduction, if it were residential, is that from our revised 353,000 from the 412,000?
Estimating 27-foot wide pavement and the cost of that abutting their frontage, John. I did not go back through and subtract every single thing out. It was to try to give a sense for the council that if we weren't doing commercial and you were going to assess something residential, how much it would go down. It's not exact. It's,
Well, if I may just, I know
Okay.
you said you didn't have the breakdown if we had the full 412,000 allocated. At least I think I heard you say that. Is that correct? So with the 412, without this new subsidy you came up with, that would make Mr. Stanley's, instead of 9,200, maybe 10,500.
I think this might help a little bit visually to see
That
it.
would be, yeah. What I'm trying to see is what the residential did versus just the cost of all of it for getting
Okay,
subsidy.
now you're gonna have to,
Um,
for my eyes at least, you're gonna have to,
I can't see it. Thank you.
there you go.
Sorry, is that
There you
better?
go. No, that,
Good enough?
much.
A little bit more, please.
So in the box here, the 295 was the original engineer's estimate that was in that July resolution. We are allowed the 25% over, so that's that 74 that you see there for the total of the 368. So when we received the bids and we had not taken off the water subsidy, and I guess some additional paving, that put us above the 368, which is why we came then in March to have you guys vote on it. Since then, we met with property owners. They inquired about the water, if it would be able to be subsidized, and for us to remove a bit of extra paving on the end. We looked at that, we agreed, we've taken that off, and then that's these numbers down here with the design, the construction, with the paving portion removed, for the subtotal of the 413. These are the different subsidies, which gets us to the 353, which now we are below what we were allowed in the original resolution by removing those items. So then this 353 here, I don't know if I can zoom in a little bit more, that'll help. But this is the original amount based on the 295. These are the updated amounts based on the 353. So hopefully that helps make sense.
so I think technically, had we subtracted out those other subsidies, we wouldn't have had to come back, but I still think with some of these costs for particularly those two properties, it was appropriate to meet again, come back, and be able to have this discussion. And obviously, the property owners, a number of them are here, and you're going to want to listen to them as well, and we'll try to answer questions that they have. But, so, John, did that answer your question?
Well, I think I just calculated here, just using some ratios. It looks like then the Stanley, as an example, you had estimated 7,700. With the 412 without subsidy, it would have gone to 10,750. With the revised with subsidy, you got it down 9,200, so about 1,500 savings there. And you're looking at maybe another 3,100 savings with the subsidy, going from 9,200 to 6,100.
Remind you, giving you the residential number is for you to think about,
Yeah, that's
do you
Board of
go ahead and
Equalization.
do you do something down the road with Board of Equalization, not
Yeah,
today?
I'm just trying to relate
Okay.
here
Yes.
the whole process. I'll go ahead. Thank you.
Your original number 295 does not have any subsidy included.
It did not. We also, at the time, remember, When we bring a council or bring to the council a district, we haven't done any engineering. We don't get paid back. We don't get any of our time and effort reimbursed until the district is actually created. So we use rule of thumb numbers per block, per length type of numbers. This is very flat. It's got storm sewer issues. It's got drainage issues that we didn't realize till we got into it. So that's why the number went up quite a bit.
But you now have a comparison of numbers that include different things. The 295 does not include the subsidies. The 353 does.
Right.
And
That's true.
therefore, I mean, I guess I don't know for sure what this 25% figure applies to, because
Well,
the 295 would be, what, 240? What are we subsidizing? How much?
well, maybe go back to the original intent
So-
of the resolution.
Yes.
I believe in late 70s, when that resolution was passed, the council felt that it was fair and appropriate if we were going to charge somebody 25% more than we had told them at the time the district was created, we needed to come back and have that public discussion before going ahead.
Well, I don't disagree. I'm just saying you now have come up with a number that you say is less than the 25% over. We have a resolution before us now to approve spending something more. You came back to us because you were over. Are you saying we don't need to pass that now?
I think technically you don't, but I clearly think it's appropriate for you to hear all this and make a decision on whether or not you think this is appropriate to move ahead.
And it doesn't matter that the 295 did not include the subsidy, because if it did, clearly you'd be well over 25% more than that.
At the time we put the number together,
That was the number everybody
The
knew.
appurtenances that we put together we thought we needed to build wouldn't necessarily have qualified for subsidy.
Well, when did you decide to do this subsidy?
We had part of it figured as we put the final numbers together and took the bid on the project. I went back to look, we took out storm or sanitary sewer, and we took out storm sewer over 15-inch in size, which is kind of typical of what we've done. I went back and reviewed why the water needed to be moved and felt that maybe the water main wasn't in a standard location. Had it been in a standard location, the paving could have been built without moving it. So I felt somewhere along the line that was an error. So I took that, I took the additional water out. We had approximately, well, on this sheet, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong. Initially, when we came to you, we had taken from the wastewater and the watershed out. It's the water items, those 18,000 is what additional, and $5,800 worth of paving that I felt we could justify and support the city subsidizing and not charging the property owners.
But if it hadn't been for the resistance that you met coming back here for the 25% over resolution, you would not necessarily have gone back and done a reevaluation of what we subsidized. So there might have been, if the number had come in 22% higher, and you hadn't had to come back to us, presumably we wouldn't have analyzed this to the detail you have, and these people would have paid for some of the things you're now saying that taxpayers or ratepayers will pay for.
And typically, that discussion is also had at Board of Equalization as we have figured that, and at times council or the board has given us direction to further subsidize. Or when we got to that point and saw what the numbers were, we might have recommended to the Board of Equalization to further subsidize that, try to be fair. And I think, Jonathan, over the years, I'm uncomfortable when something comes in 20% over and we wouldn't come back to the council, because I'm not sure I think that's completely fair, particularly when you've got folks, mixed use kind of, even though the zoning is all commercial, we've got those two properties that are residential. So if it had been 20, I would have probably had some discussions with Mickey and said, you know, I think maybe we ought to bring this one back. So I think we'd have been back here having this conversation.
Okay.
Don, I do have a question for you. If we were to try to apply residential rates to the two residential properties, who would make up the difference? Obviously, that there would be some cost to the project that would have to go elsewhere.
Be another city subsidy, Larian, that would have to be assumed at the time. And again, that would be a question for the Board of Equalization. Some of the other discussion that we just had, there's been a lot of this that's happened subsequent to, the estimate and when the bids were received. So, I mean, I think that this body does need to act on the resolution that's before it today. I mean, given where we've had, if they pull some things out and change the design, you could go back and rebid it, but that's an unknown quantity too. You don't know what you're going to get then. The original estimate was $295. As Rogers indicated, you don't have any of the design or any of those other public works engineering services costs built in at that point, and it really wasn't known at the time that we were going to encounter the issues with the storm drainage because of the particular lay of that land, and as well as the water and maybe some of these other issues with the paving on the one end. So given all of that, I mean, those are known facts. We reached that point where it was above the 25%. Now there's been further discussion. We realize we can pull some of those things out, but I think the focus is that when this was bid, it came in 25% over. Now, the subsidies will be applied ultimately when the assessment is proposed for the properties. You have to have the uniform rate, as Roger alluded to, throughout all properties in the district. What would the Board of Equalization would do, the council sitting at the Board of Equalization would say, okay, here's the commercial rate, here's the rate at residential, and Roger and Aaron have kind of outlined the differences between what that would be in terms of a dollar subsidy to the two residential properties. The Board of Equalization would make that determination after the project's completed. Again, we don't know what that final cost is going to be and what that rate will be. And then at that time, the Board of Equalization can say, okay, we're going to provide a subsidy to those two residential properties in a lump sum amount, and that would be assumed by some fund in Public Works, I assume, Roger? Street construction. So that would be what would happen there.
So we're looking at another 18,000 roughly that the city would pick up in addition to the 58,000 that you've already calculated, bringing it to 58 and 18,
Yeah, roughly.
76,000.
70 to 75.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
So what if we vote no on this resolution? What's the result?
If you vote no, then we would not move ahead. We'd cancel the contract.
That
I
wouldn't,
suppose we'd have, certainly I think it's appropriate for the petitioner to come up and share with you a little bit about why they want it. Someone that wants paving adjacent to their property could choose to do that paving through a private developer agreement, executive order, pay for it themselves, ask for contributions from their neighbors and business people, but they'd be fronting all of that and there wouldn't be any assessment. That's an option.
and there's nothing to prevent in this kind of an arrangement for one property owner who wants the paving to help subsidize another property owner to make a private agreement.
They could do that, yes, yes. And in some cases, we've had that wouldn't be part of this agreement.
Right.
Clearly, Public Works is neutral on this, and I appreciate the challenges and the difficulties of trying to decide what to do because of the cost. You've got a business that wants the infrastructure to move ahead, to do some things, and yet it creates a financial hardship for some others. So clearly, we're not here advocating one way or the other. So, but my understanding is if you do not approve this, we wouldn't move ahead with the contract, and we'd sit and wait and let the owners decide what else they might want to do or nothing.
Just for council's education, this was first brought to the Special Assessment Revolving Committee at a meeting on May 23rd, 2012. So that might explain why the costs have escalated a little bit, because it's been sitting out there for almost 3 years.
Well, Don, I don't know that the additional cost is so much the issue as the idea that the cost benefit for the residentials is
Clearly.
an issue.
Clearly.
I mean, it's
That
hard to put your arms around when you're
Understood.
talking about it. And on the other hand, you don't want to say, it's hard to say to the business, no, we don't understand what your needs are. So the balance is a little bit difficult. And this is one of the rare ones that I've ever seen. Usually when you have a paving district, everybody gains out of the paving district. Everybody's property value goes up, and then there's an offset, and you can see, but the use that the residential will get, given the capacity of the road, doesn't necessarily offset this time.
That's
We
the
have-
unusual nature.
The other thing I think that points out maybe some of the difficulty, I believe our records would say that there was a request and the council created a paving district for this same area in 2002. They were never able to get a 51 or over 50% petition, and then after a year that went away. But again, so this point.
Thank you. Any other comments? John?
First question, on the, where you did, if you did this totally residential, you gave us a breakdown by 2 parcels, but what would the, if this whole thing were residential, what would the cost be totally?
John, all I did is I went back and for those 2 properties that had residential, I took a 27-foot street average cost times their frontage. I did not figure a residential street for the whole area because we wouldn't recommend building a residential street. So I only figured the difference between residential and commercial for those 2 properties, tract 2 and 3.
Okay, I was just thinking, see the total, but, okay. Second question is, you mentioned a moment ago that you have to present an equal levy or rate for all properties. This may be a Mr. Top question, but in what statute ordinance does that requirement lie?
There's case law from the late 1800s to the early 1900s that says that the uniformity of the rate is essential in the district. I mean, that's where it's coming from. And he talks about equalization. I mean, that's the whole idea. If you want to do a subsidy, that's one thing. But you equalize the rate amongst all the properties, and our charter and state statute speak to that.
So it is state statute then?
As well as, yes,
and
as well as the
common
case law
or
that's been
case law?
developed over that time. The uniformity of the rate is the very basic principle.
So if that's the case, if we met as a Board of Equalization, how could we really violate state statute and change the rate?
The rate, it would still be assessed at, they'll use a number. I think it was initially proposed at $179 or $182 a front foot. The rate would be assessed at $182, and then the equivalent front footage on a residential basis, we would just take a lump sum and apply it to that property, effectively reducing it. But the rate would still be assessed at the $179.
So who would make up that deficit?
Street construction funds, the city of Lincoln.
So that'd be in
paid that.
addition to this other
Yes, we
subsidy
already had,
came?
Lorian pointed that out. It's
Okay,
about
I missed that.
$75,000.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody who'd like to speak for this item, please come forward. Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Ayers. I'm here talking in support of the road. I'm with Ayers and Ayers. We're the folks that help work with Public Works to get this on the table. I want to back everybody up to my original decision to purchase this property 15 years ago. It was properly zoned. It was an I-1 zoning in North Lincoln, which facilitated the needs of our business. I came down and spoke with Public Works about the opportunity to pave access to this site and was given the rules at that time. It was my understanding that if I had 51% of the land ownership in support of it, that I could get a paving district to support that. I worked hard in, I believe the date, as I just heard, was 2002, had a paving district, facilitated that. We did not have the required, basically I had 50% over a stretch of the property, but not, there's an intermediate piece kind of tying it together. After that time, I went and purchased a piece of real estate that was on the corner. It was a residential unit that had been abandoned. I bought that building at auction, but that gave me, along with a landowner, kind of catty corner, a greater than 51%. I came down and spoke with Public Works again in 2012 to facilitate the paving district. I understand the rules to be that if we have 51% and we're following the rules and we're attaching to an industrial piece of property and we made an investment, that's what the rules were. And so I've worked hard to facilitate that. I'm not happy with the increase in price, but I would have been happy to pay the price from 2002. I mean, you know, it just keeps going up that ladder. So I am here in support. I would ask all of you, and I hope that you have taken the opportunity to drive there. I built a building on the structure about 10 years ago and orientated and facilitated that structure for this future road. So I've made an investment also to support this, with my understanding that if I have landowner support greater than 51%, that I was following the rules. And so that's what I've done. So, question?
Roy?
Would you be willing to pay the entire cost of the development?
Absolutely not. Everybody benefits. They say today that they wouldn't, but everybody in a development like this benefits. I go back to my originally council member purchasing the ground, and there was actually an agreement in place from the landowners when they bought their ground not to dispute the 35th Street when that road went in. I brought that up 15 years ago, and legal looked at it and said, well, that's pretty old. And I'm like, okay. So, I was given the rule, and we're paying the vast majority of it. And I'm actually, but I think that the benefit to the area, it needs cleaned up. When 33rd Street takes its way through North Lincoln, we're going to improve that area, and I'd like to be part of that improvement along the way.
Everybody gains, but part of the fact, Doug, is that it's not a residential road.
Right.
So we're asking for a higher standard than they would normally pay for.
Okay.
So how about the difference between what a residential road, I mean, because your company is the one who benefits from the higher use.
Okay, I'm going to challenge that and say we all benefit. And Councilman, do I benefit more? I don't know. I've survived with it for 15 years, driving through the mud on on something that hasn't been maintained. Would I agree today to pay an incremental value? If you could somewhat tell me what that incremental value would be, and I would have other protection for that. I don't know that I've tried to really follow all the rules, and I believe that I have followed those rules. So it's unfortunate that there are residential units built in a commercial district. I didn't make that deal, okay, and I don't know that I think it's fair that I pay that price. I'm not saying absolutely no to that incremental piece, but I think from my perspective that's unfair. I think I followed the rules. I went out and bought a house and tore it down for a piece of real estate. I paid $45,000 for 5 acres of ground, and then I bought a corner lot for a piece of real estate and paid $70,000 and then tore the house down so that I could own the ground. I mean, that was part of my understanding. And so I've tried to follow the rules here. And I think it's unfortunate, and sometimes we have difficult decisions like that. But I'm not trying to take advantage of anyone, but I'm really tried to play by the rules.
Absolutely. I just want to say, feel for you right now, because this seems like a really, really wonderful illustration of why zoning is so important and why it's so important for us to zone correctly. Because if these homes had never been allowed to be zoned industrially, we wouldn't be in this situation today. And that's not your doing. I don't know whose doing it was. It was before all of us.
Right.
In terms of your specific question about the potential difference between residential and commercial, what that increment is, I believe it's roughly $18,000.
How much?
Roughly $18,000.
Okay.
So
I'll agree to that $18,000 for that case for those 2 lots, and we're going to move forward. But I want to move forward because the costs just go up, and I have no added value for the piece of real estate that I own. I was also going to look at you and tell you, if you don't approve this today, then just give me the land. I'll move my fence over, and I'll take care of it, because I have a piece of 35th Street that just runs to nowhere.
Appreciate your willingness to compromise. We'll have to hear from the homeowners and again, from staff, but appreciate that.
Okay. Anything else?
Don't go away.
Okay, thank you.
But just to thank you very much, Mr. Ayers. So as my colleague just said, it does appear it's about 18,000. If the city does the 58,000 subsidy, getting them down, but still that versus a residential is about 18,000.
Okay.
And it's not, I was going to ask the question if my colleague did, and then we hate to put you on the spot here on the camera and all, but is that comfortable that you're saying you would?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay,
And we're not talking about on the commercial people. We're just talking on the 2 residences. Is that right?
We don't get to really broker a deal from up here.
Yeah.
We need to
Okay.
send everybody back and hear the rest of the
Does that open a can of
discussion.
worms?
Let's hear the rest of the discussion. Go.
Okay.
Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item? Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item? You were good. We're good. Anybody else who'd like, if we're going to do it, we can send them delay a week and send them back and tell them you got to do this the best you can get. And then move
Thank
on.
you.
But I don't want to broker a deal from here.
No, that's.
I'm Ron Beeman. I live at 3520 Gladstone, and I'm against this. And it's just that I've lived at this address for 35 years. And like you said, have that right of way. I've mowed that. I've raised 2 daughters there. And the way the paving is, it's 2/3 of the value of my house right now. You add that to it, I have too small a lot to make it worth, light industry, to sell it that way. And nobody wants to buy a residential in that area, so you're actually just putting me out of the market. I could, for what they're gonna charge me, I can just let it go and just let it lay there until it goes to foreclosure or whatever. It's just that I can't afford to do that.
Right.
So, Mr. Beaman, what you're really saying is if this were to pass and you were assessed $42,000 on that property, that you would essentially be foreclosed upon de facto. You would no longer be able to afford to live in your residence.
Well, my house is valued at $51,000. My property is valued at $51,000, and then you're adding $42,000 onto that?
Okay. And what if it were $27,700? Be any different to you?
Well, it helped, but it's, they say they're taking away the water and sewage and everything. Well, I had to hook up to water and sewage when I moved into the house. And so I think I paid for that once. They're not giving me anything else. They're just, they're just not charging me again for it. They already charged me once for it. Then for the fire hydrants, we paid for that the first time too. Now they're saying that they're going to take it off. Well, they've made the mistake, not us. So I think the price is just way. That's only 3 blocks. It goes to a dead end, turns, and then goes to a dead end again. All it's doing is making a driveway for heirs and heirs. The other people there, it's the back of their lots. It'd be like an alleyway for them. Yeah, it'd give them access, but they have access now. I'm all for giving them the right of way, closing it down, giving them the right of way, and just leaving it at that. Well, here's part of the right of way.
Questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item, please come forward. If you're going to speak, why don't you come on down front, because we're going to get you all eventually. Whoever wants to come first, come right on down.
My name's Jay Standley. I have the property at 3500 Gladstone Street. This property's been in my family since the 20s. My grandfather and dad built a house in 1956. I bought it from the estate in 2003 with the intent to pass it on, and I am in objection of this proposed paving district. This is a 3-block paving area that serves 2 homeowners and 2 or 3 small businesses, little to no purpose. And this will be a financial burden to us. My part alone, well, it went down to about $9,200 now, I guess, but that's still probably, it'll put me owing more than what it is actually valued at, unfortunately. I understand his situation somewhat, but I, more than anything, probably can't afford it. And if he's willing to do something like that, I would probably go along with that. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Questions? John?
Mr. Stanley, do you recall what the Lancaster County Assessor does have your house assessed at? Is it about the 9,200, just to deal with facts here?
This is from last year, and it's $33,300.
Which with
I owe that much to the bank on it.
which with a paved road would go up some, so.
Yeah, but it was valued a lot more than that 7 or 8 years ago.
No question.
And that is a taxation value, not probably a true market value, but
Sure.
still.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item, come right on down.
Hi, I'm Susan Woida. My address is 8700 Pearl Road, and I'm here today to speak against the paving of Gladstone from 35th to 36th Street and 36th Street to Gladstone, Tartley. J&J Diesel has been at 3430 North 35th Street since 1984 and have never had a reason to access 36th Street, and I don't see a reason for the use of 36th Street in the future. We've had problems in the past with people entering our property from 36th Street. It's not even a dirt road, it's just grass. They usually come in the middle of the night to steal scrap iron from us. For this reason alone, we did install a fence along 36th Street with a gate installed, mainly so we would have access to 36th Street to mow the easement. We feel that with the paving of 36th Street, there will be more people driving down a dead-end road where they don't belong just to check out to see what's there. Mike Ayers from Ayers and Ayers he tried to get this project passed back in 2002, but did not have majority to get the project approved. He purchased another lot around 2006 so he could try again to push it through and get 36th Street paved. We feel that he is doing this for the benefit of his business alone, not caring what kind of hardship it causes the small business owner or the homeowners in this neighborhood. We received a letter from the Public Works and Utilities Department dated March 4th, 2015, stating that our new estimated amount would be $40,460, up from the original estimate assessment on our property of $31,990. This is a 26.5% increase of the original estimate. The original estimate amounts to a significant hardship for our small family-owned company, but this new dollar amount will make it even more of a financial burden for us. I did some research on the property valuations in our property and the neighborhood properties from Lancaster County Appraisal website. I found that our property was valued at $95,600 in 2014. The new estimate amount of $40,460 is 42% of our assessed property value. We do not feel that we will ever recoup this paving district in additional taxes. My husband, Jim Moita, and I attended a meeting on March 11th that was held at Ayers and Ayers regarding the paving of Gladstone from 35th to 36th and 36th from Gladstone to Hartley. While we were there, we were able to visit with 2 other property owners before and after the meeting to see what they had to say on the matter. Both these property owners are homeowners and have lived in their residence for a number of years, and neither one was in agreement of this project. The home on 3520 Gladstone Street is owned by Ron Beeman and was valued at $55,100 in 2014. The estimated assessment on this property is around $45,000. The new estimate amount is $82,000 of the property value. After talking with Mr. Beeman, he stated that he would have to sell his property for $100,000 or he would lose money. The home on 3500 Gladstone is owned by Jay Stanley and was valued at $33,300. The estimated assessment on this property is around $19,000. The new estimated amount is $57,000 of the property value. Both these gentlemen are hardworking men trying to make a living for themselves and do not need the added hardship this would cause them. They are upset with this burden that is being dumped on them, the average citizen voter. We also talked to Jim Olston, who is the owner of Olston Business Properties, LLC, and we talked to him on Friday, and his property is located on 3443 North 36th Street. He stated to Jim Moita, that's my husband, that he is not in favor of the project either. Mr. Olson told us that his estimated assessed value on this property was almost $50,000. His property is over $30,000. His property is valued at $30,100. The new estimate amount is 166% of his property value. Mr. Olson does have a fence along 36th Street with no access to the fence to 36th. Mr. Olson has also had problems with people entering off of his property off of 36th Street to steal from him. In the entirety before the mentioned properties, the before mentioned properties are worth a total of $234,100, with the assessed cost of the paving district being $134,560. This is 58.15% value of the property. As you can see, this would be a hardship, and the assessment amount is outrageous for everyone that really lives and works in this neighborhood. I ask that you vote against the paving district in consideration of the financial hardship that this would cause for everyone except for the one business that wants this. Just because it's legal doesn't make it right. Any questions?
Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to speak this item, come forward.
My name is Jim Moida, and I reside at 8700 Pearl Road, Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm here today to speak against the paving of Gladstone from 35th Street to 36th Street and 36th Street from Gladstone to Hartley Street. I'm the owner of J&J Diesel, and we have been at 3430 North 35th since 1984. I have never had a reason to access 36th Street, and I do not see a reason for the use of 36th Street in the future. Olson Business Properties LLC, owner of the property LKQ resides on, formerly was Olson Import Auto Recyclers, and I have often discussed whether or not we would ever use 36th Street. And we both were in strong agreement that we would not, that 36th Street would never be needed. I do not see 36th Street going through to Cornhusker Highway due to the trailer park in the buildings between Gladstone and Cornhusker Highway. Any delivery trucks or people coming in to do business in that area or at J&J would have to arrive either via 33rd Street or 35th Street to Gladstone, and 35th Street to Gladstone, and then to 35th Street Circle. The only person or business to benefit from this paved street would be Ayers and Ayers. I also do not see 36th Street going to Superior Street for a long time. In order for it to go to Superior Street, a bridge would have to be built over Salt Creek, which would be a huge expense for the city of Lincoln. The $40,460 assessed cost to J&J would be a hardship for my business and an added expense that would never be an asset to my company. A question that I have for you is, in addition to the $40,460,000 paving assessment, how much would my taxes go up every year because of the paving district?
I think you'd have to check with the assessor. That's not our area of expertise.
I guess I had a question too on the bid sheet. There was some, on item 8 of the bid sheet, there was some removal and reinstallation of fences. I was wondering which fence is that?
We'll get that answer. We'll get Roger up here to answer that question for you, or somebody, okay?
Okay.
Any questions? I'm sorry.
Another question I have is whether or not there's any TIF money that would help with the cost of this project.
I doubt whether there's a TIF district there, but that will be, I'll get Roger to answer that question. You understand it has to be used in a district, so.
There's 7 property owners who would be affected by this paving district. 4 are strongly against it, and 1 company is staying neutral because they do business with Ayers and Ayers. Because of this paving district would be a hardship for the majority of the property owners, I ask that you vote against this paving district. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
No.
One of the previous testifiers said they'd be willing to not use this land right away. What are your thoughts on that if, say, Ayers and Ayers just bought or took the right of way, bought it from the city, and you had no connection there, it's totally their private road?
Are they buying the whole 36th Street or their half of the 36th Street?
Let's say the whole thing.
My fence is up to the easement, so it wouldn't change anything as far as where I'm at right now. It wouldn't change anything.
So not having access to
they
that
could buy, yeah.
doesn't affect you? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Jim Olston. I live at 6401 North 7th, and my business is at 3450 North 35th Circle. It's now called Olston's Business Properties LLC. That road back there, I'm very familiar with it because I mow it about 10 times a year, and right to the fire hydrants. It's never been used for the last 15 years, and the sewer they put in. whenever they put that in. It's been close to 15 years, and I mow around the fire hydrant, and I mow around the sewer manhole, and basically the road just ends right there at the mud puddle. It holds about 4 inches of water there, because the drainage is really bad. But anyhow, it's a road that goes to nowhere, and I don't want it. I don't need it. It just causes more people to get back there to steal parts. They'll just take a panel off the fence, walk in that night, and back their truck right up to it, and this will make it easier for them. Sometimes they get stuck right now, so at least I get my revenge there.
Do you have tow truck services too?
Well, yeah. We went back there one time with a forklift, and Doug went out that was buried. But anyhow, I couldn't prove anything, so. But anyhow, yeah, that road goes to nowhere. I don't know why they want to do that, 36th Street. Gladstone, I could see where that car probably could get paved, and that would give heirs and heirs his access. I would be willing, because I can always use more ground. I just sold my business to LKQ. That's a big outfit that does salvage yards. But they've got no interest in the road. I lease it to them 5 years at a time, and so it's not going to, when that gets paved, it's not going to benefit me a bit. I don't think it's too late to try to, because my taxes are going to go up, of course, because it's probably going to value that ground a little bit more. Maybe in 5 years, when I renegotiate the lease, I might be able to recoup a little bit of that money back, but I doubt it. So I definitely don't need the road. I would be willing to, if the city does vacate it or something, I would be willing my half of because I just moved my fence back a little bit, and that way I wouldn't have to mow that road that's supposedly there. I wouldn't have to mow it that's been a real pain for the last 15 years, mowing that back there. But anyhow, that's about all I had to say. I definitely don't want it, can't use it. It's a waste of $50,000 that I just as soon keep myself, rather than give it away to the city or whoever. I don't see that road ever going any further north, because a lot of that's in the floodplain. It would have to take a lot to build it up, and then it's got to cut over toward 40th Street somehow or another to get access, unless you want to build a bridge across Salt Creek. And they built that up pretty heavy. It would be pretty hard to get a road through that way. You'd almost have to go over to 40th Street, which it could, I suppose, but right now it's a road that goes to nowhere. I guess that's all I had.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else like to? Roger, staff questions you want to answer, if you could, those questions?
I believe the fence removal is on Mr. Beeman's property right there on the corner that would need to be removed and reset as part of the paving in there. And I am not qualified to speak to use of TIF for any of that.
Well, John?
Yes, Mr. Feigard, a couple of the testifiers talked about, they don't use the road at all if it became private.
Do you have something?
Is that possible with the?
Well, there's a difference between private, and I think what they said was to consider vacation of the property. And I put the plat up here that shows 36th Street. One of the requirements of a platted lot is it must abut a public roadway or a public right-of-way. So lots 11, 7, 6, 5, 4, 8, and 9, if that were to be vacated, that would all, I believe, have to be done as part of a replatting process. If I'm understanding, I believe these lots here are owned by the businesses that operate over here on 35th Street Circle. So those would have to be replatted. I don't know that that's an insurmountable obstacle to do that.
Assuming that is feasible, is there anybody that would suffer if this street became private, or we sold the right-of-way and let the private sector maintain it, or construct, maintain?
I'd certainly want John to sit down with the planning department and see what the other platted streets are and access into, there's a significant mobile home court, I believe, over here, see what the future access would be and how that would be handled. I'm not aware there'd be a severe hardship, but I would be inappropriate for me to say with certainty today.
And if it were privately owned, or whatever you want to call it, and let's say in this case, Ayers and Ayers decided to do the construction itself to the right standards, is that possible?
Not if it's vacated, they could build a driveway, but now you're, if somehow or other you change that, vacated it, and then put a public easement on it, they could build a private road, but that private road would need to meet generally the same standards as a public road. I would assume, and again, Mr. Ayers would need to correct me, if he was talking about the potential of it being vacated and he took that over, maybe he's talking about then access coming in off of extending Gladstone over and take his paved access off of the south end. I don't know. He did reference that he built a building that fronted 36th Street, excuse me, up on the property. I don't know just where that sits, but
Or maybe it's something the parties
probably some other options.
can investigate. I don't know. Maybe it's just a harebrained idea, but it might be too. Sometimes if somebody does the construction themselves, even meeting the city standards, it's less expensive.
In order to do that, we'd have to go through some land use and platting kinds of issues with planning to determine what could be done. Probably another difficulty and a challenge before you and I we took bids on this project January 28th. Our bid is good for 60 days. So in about 12 days, our contractor, I believe legally, can say he no longer wants to do that project. Some of the other discussions you're talking about seem to me like would probably involve a fair bit of time. We're not talking days, probably weeks for folks to sit down and go through all the what ifs for vacation or creating a private road or how to do those kind of things. So I think I'm advising you, I'm not pushing one way or the other today. This is a tough, difficult situation. If we go much past today or next week, we're probably in a situation where this bid goes away, and then if we wanted to move ahead, we'd be looking at rebidding the project.
So Roger, tell me what the cost is of rebidding the project. Not really any.
Time, and
I understand that.
Time, and you never know what the next contractor will bid. It could go up or down either way. So no great risk, Aaron. Yeah.
The only thing that I want to add that, again, is probably not a major thing, but there are utilities that have to relocate. So that would just, they don't want to relocate right now, of course, until they know for sure if this is going to happen. So that would just possibly push back the schedule overall.
Right.
But again,
and I appreciate that. It would be nice if we could, if we could find a Solomon way to split the baby here. I don't think that's going to happen to the extent that all parties would be happy, but it seems reasonable to me that there might still be some room for discussion that gets us closer to something that everybody could live with, even if you had to hold your nose to live with it. It's just one person talking here, but it seems to me that, and I guess my question to Don is, I guess what's our liability if we say no to somebody who has played by the rules and got 51% of the district? And
No, I don't know that there's any liability, Councilman. He did obviously go out and secure the necessary 51%. The matter was ordered constructed, which is what is required in the process once that 51% of property owner petitions are obtained. But we also had a resolution, or still have a resolution, that this body, a predecessor body of the City Council, passed a number of years ago that provides for the bids of being 25% above. And again, that's more in the interest of fairness.
all right.
And that is what is before you. So if you vote against this at this point in time, as Rogers indicated, that the project is essentially dead. You know, I mean, the district has still been created. the district wouldn't necessarily go away, but the construction of it at this time would until such time as it would be rebid.
Okay.
Because the district hasn't been repealed, so
Okay.
it's not dead. You know, if the 60 days runs its course and it's rebid, who knows? You know, I mean, we're getting into the construction season, anything could happen. But, you know, there sounds like there's
Gotcha.
some other options that have been brought forward today that could be explored, some of which are going to take some time, as Roger indicated clearly.
Correct. Okay.
Do you have a question? I feel like we've got a lot of new information here, and I'm kind of building off your comment. Would it be prudent for us to step back for a couple weeks and allow some meetings to take place, some conversations based on what Mr. Ayers has said, and, you know, some other things that have come forward from city law and Public Works to maybe, you know, take another 2 weeks to have some conversations about this before we move forward?
Trent, are you talking more about some cost sharing and agreements amongst the property owners, or maybe looking at a different way of serving the area, perhaps vacating the right of way, replatting, and finding a different approach?
I mean, we've gone over everything under the sun, maybe, that we can think of in a hour-long hearing over a pretty tough issue. Would we be making the right decision to take a step back and make sure that we make the right decision before we move forward with this? And maybe that's a open-ended question to the other members of the council. I know I would feel comfortable with satisfying, you know, what Mr. Ayers is trying to do, but also, you know, the folks that took time out of their day to come down here and talk about, you know, some of the most important things that they have in their possession, which is their property. I guess I could make a motion to delay for 2 weeks with continued public hearing and see if I would get a second from someone.
That runs us outside the bid,
Right.
though, time frame. That runs us outside the bid time frame, right?
We can contact the contractor
Okay.
and see if he's willing. You know, that's what the contract says, but sometimes they'll say they continue. We can certainly follow on that. We want to
12 days? What if I made it just for, what if I amended my own motion to make it a week, and we see where we get, and see if the contractor is willing to allow his estimate to stand for a little bit longer, and we could do another delay next week. But I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of new information here, and it'd be great to have another conversation, or at
we
least
can
have
certainly
some.
ask him
Yeah.
if you get that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Did you make that motion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Second by Larian.
What is it again?
Yeah, sorry. A little long-winded there, forgive me.
Repeat your motion?
Yeah, to delay for 1 week with continued public hearing and allow Public Works and other folks to go and get some more information.
John?
Mr. Todd, is the idea, just so we're not delaying and then there's no balance to work on something, but if this were to be vacated and then Ayers and Ayers wanted to build a private drive on it for its business and pay for it, is that legally possible?
I think it was something that we need to look at. I'm not going to commit to whether it's legal or not unless I talk to planning first. Because as Rogers pointed out, some of those properties where that district, they're being cut in half, they take their off of North 35th Circle. But they are abutting, you know, they have to have. So, I mean, Ayers' property needs to have access to a public right-of-way. And I'm not familiar enough with where their access is. Looks like if they have a drive onto 36th, but I hear the other property owners talk about mowing. So, I mean, part of that 36th Street may be a platted street, but it may not be open. I don't know what it even looks like up there. I think we need to have the discussion with planning to see what's feasible or what's not, to determine whether, you know, that's legal. I mean, I think that if you're going to vacate it, half of it's going to, half of it goes to the abutting properties on each side of the street. And if Mr. Olston then wants to convey part of his property to, you know, a property on the other side of the street, you know, I heard him kind of allude to that perhaps. That's a possibility, but that's something I don't think we have any control over. I mean, it does have to be replatted, I think, based on what Roger said. How we would do that, you know, it's possible that he would have, you know, it could be done if it's a private street, but we'd still have to have a public access easement, as we would with any other private street.
Okay.
There's a lot of nuances, I think, that have to be worked through, but I think it's feasible that it can be done.
I think we're in discussion on that motion, but.
Yeah, we are in discussion.
Well, and I guess, is it possible for Mr. Ayers to have a rebuttal here so we can understand?
No, what we're talking about now is whether we're going to delay it or not going to delay it.
Would there be if we vote on, would there be a subsequent opportunity for Mr. Ayers to have rebuttal?
Oh, I think at some point, if we delay it, it's going to have to come back up for discussion again.
Well, I think the motion is for 1 week with continued public hearing,
Right.
so.
I guess we've just got the parties here.
I think we'll get it done today.
If that's the motion and the council passes that, I've already talked to my staff. We would get planning, public works, and law together to talk about the details of exactly what would need to happen for a potential vacation, and certainly get a hold of our contractor to see what he's willing to do as far as continuing his bid. And at the same time, I think we'd want to talk to Mr. Ayers, and we would do that too, to further explore his thoughts on the vacation a little bit further. As that as we could in the upcoming week, and report back to you next Monday.
Any other discussion? That's good. Well, I'm going to vote against this. I appreciate Trent bringing it forward. I understand his thinking about bringing it forward that way. I guess my feeling is I'd rather vote this and vote it down, and let the since the paving district is still there, and let's go back and relook at all of the aspects of that. I do understand, and then the people who are on that street need to understand that the next bid might not be the same price as this bid. You may actually it may cost you more if we delay this project. But if there's a real concern about where the roads go to and whether those ought to be in scope, then we're not going to get that solved in a week. Call roll, please.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
No.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1.
Okay.
So it will
Next
be on next Monday.
Next item, please.
Next would be accepting the report of new and pending claims against the city and approving disposition of claims set forth for the period of February 16th through the 28th, 2015.
Anybody who'd like to speak, come right on up.
My name is Charles Bitker. I'm new at this, so you have to forgive me. 5644 Northwest 14th Street in Lincoln is my address. On the evening of February 6th, I was driving on Superior Street, eastbound near Lewis Avenue. Had a pothole that took out both passenger side tires and both alloy wheels on my 1-month-old car. Caused about $1,300 in damage. It wasn't marked at all, but the potholes to the west of it on Superior Street were. And I submitted a claim to the city attorney, and it was denied. So my question is, why was it denied? They said that it was because they hadn't been notified that there was a pothole there. But why were the potholes marked westbound of that, or west of that, on the same direction, same side of the street? Why am I held liable essentially for the potholes that did quite a bit of damage to my car?
Mr. Bick, we're going to get the attorney up to explain the Tort Claims Act for you here in just a minute, so have a seat. And we might as well do this for all of these because it's obviously relevant to what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Jeff, you want to come up and discuss it?
I didn't bring the whole stack up. I've got a stack like this of claims. Most of them are potholes because of the weather pattern we had. We had a lot of potholes because of the amount of moisture and the freezing temperatures. We had a lot of very bad potholes this year. And we've received a lot of claims. When we receive a claim, it's our practice to take a look at when the damage occurred, when we received notification of the pothole being in existence, and when the pothole was fixed. And we pay off the claims where the city is negligent. Our evaluation of our negligence is how long after we knew there was a pothole at a particular location, not on a street, not on a block, but at a particular location, how long did it take for the city to fill that pothole? And so we do the research when we know about the specific pothole. And in this case, for example, the pothole in question was first reported on February 5th. I understand his damage occurred on the 7th, which was after or on the 6th. So it was the day after the pothole was first reported, and our records indicate that the pothole was filled on the 9th. So it was 4 days from the time that we knew about the pothole until we got it fixed. And when we look at what is reasonable, do you have a question?
The question is, in general, then, the Tort Claims Act gives us how long from notification till repair?
We have to act reasonably, and the reasonableness is a matter of the circumstances. If this was in the middle of summer, where there aren't very many potholes, and we had notice of a big hole that could cause damage, it may be reasonable for us to be out there and repair within 48 hours. On this particular week, you may recall we repaired about 12,000 potholes. And so I would suggest that it may not be unreasonable to take 4 or 5 days or even longer if we had two factors. One was the huge number of potholes that occurred almost simultaneously. The second factor is when the potholes first started popping up was also during a time when we had a lot of snow cover still on the streets. So it wasn't practical to fill the potholes at the same time we were clearing the streets from the snow and ice that had built up. And so in this case, when our office looked at it, we had the first report on the 5th. We've repaired it on the 9th. We believe under the circumstances when we're trying to fill 12,000 potholes in a city, that it's not unreasonable. It would take 4 days for us to get to that particular pothole. Now, when you look at the accident it happened the day after. So could we have been out and filled 10,000 potholes from when they first started popping up until this gentleman had his unfortunate accident? I don't think that's practical. If it's not practical, then the city is not negligent. If we're not negligent, then we don't pay those claims. Now, having said that, let me say we received a lot of claims. We didn't see any of them we had any problem with as far as they were too expensive, they were unreasonable, the potholes weren't there where the people thought they were. I have no reason to doubt any of the claims we received. What we have to look at is, did we have a reasonable period of time to fill those? Did we fail to act reasonably before the damage occurred? And that's the analysis we go through every time we receive a pothole claim.
John?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. What about the gentleman's comment that there were other potholes with cones marking them in the vicinity? And I don't recall how many feet away, but would it, within a certain reason, if it's somewhat close and proximate, wouldn't there be an expectation that staff would also mark those?
Well, I think, again, that goes to the reasonableness. Would it have been reasonable for us to put cones in 7,000 to 10,000 potholes in a period of 24 hours? At the same time, we're still clearing streets. I would suggest that our analysis would be that that's not reasonable. I don't even know how many cones the roads department has, but I'm not sure we had enough this year. They all came at once, the potholes. A lot of them were very bad, and I think the city reacted very quickly, and within a week had all of the bad potholes filled. But unfortunately, in the stack of claims that I received, and I know some people didn't get around to filing claims, unfortunately, when you have people driving on those streets with those terrible potholes, which I'm sure everyone on the council also had to navigate, you're going to have some significant damage, and that's unfortunate.
Any
Did
other
you,
questions?
I'm sorry,
Yep, Aaron?
given that there were cones nearby and so the area, there was notification probably before the day before for the area nearby, did you go back as an office when you were analyzing this case and look at how that was reported and what they said? Because I know when I was reporting some of them, I would say there's a stretch of potholes on 27th between Highway 2 and, a particular Woodsdale. It's a huge stretch. And maybe not all of them would be marked. I guess I'm trying to understand how that particular case, if you were able to investigate the exact reporting, where it came from, what it said.
What it says is we've received citizens' complaints that came into our action center on February 6th, or 5th. And I don't know, the report does not even say what time of the day that was, whether that was 11:30 at night, 11 o'clock in the morning. So you've got a range there. The other issue that I don't know that we look at a whole lot is, are we negligent in not putting up cones? I mean, our goal is not to put up cones, which could blow away, could be hit by a car, knocked out of the pothole. Our goal as a city is to fill the potholes and solve the problem on at least a more temporary but safer basis.
Any other questions? Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, just one.
I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking about the, I guess wondering about our definition of negligence here in this particular case, and it's 4 days.
What our definition is?
Yeah. Well, I mean, does 4 days count as being negligent or not?
Well,
in the
it's
circumstance?
the analysis of my department that 4 days under these circumstances is not negligent. I would suggest that I'm not sure that 7 days would be negligent under the conditions we were working under. Now, if you recall, the city actually filled, I don't know what the final number was, 10 or 12,000 potholes within 5 days. But I would suggest to you that was a superhuman effort. I mean, we put on a lot of crews, worked a lot of hours in order to do that. And by doing so, we saved the citizens of Lincoln a lot of problems, a lot of damage. But to say that we would be negligent, that we were unreasonable if we hadn't done that, I don't know that we can say that.
Did your department examine at all the condition of the roadway? Superior Street is in terrible shape. It's scheduled to be rebuilt. A pothole springing up on some street that is well maintained. Yeah, I can see that. But this is really kind of a bad stretch of road here that is going to be repaired and replaced. It seems like the city should know that it's a problem in good conditions. Bad conditions, maybe it's less than 4 or 5 days. I don't know.
Well, I guess one option would be to close streets when you have potholes in Superior, or I come to work on Capitol Parkway, and that was quite a obstacle course for a couple of days there. I don't know that we frankly have the resources in order to do that analysis block by block and to say it's negligent not to fill the potholes here, but it's not negligent to fill the potholes on this block.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Did you understand the explanation?
Yeah, I understand the explanation. Like I said, my only concern, and you guys covered that, I appreciate your point. Superior is in very bad shape. I live in the Highlands. All 3 exits from the Highlands are in very bad shape. But it seemed like, and I applaud the efforts of the Public Works Department. They did a great job filling those. Yes, it was an unfortunate circumstance, but it seemed like the outside, or the right lane eastbound was almost the entire lane from the Highlands to 14th Street was in very bad shape. So I don't think it would have been unreasonable to close that lane down. Even during the day, I hit it at 8 o'clock at night. There was no way I could have seen it. But I know it's coming up to that roundabout, and that's a really tricky situation. But in my estimation, I don't think it would have been unreasonable to close at least a large section of that roadway, at least that lane of it. But that's just my opinion, having driven on it for that long.
Thank you
So,
very much. Anybody else who'd like to speak to a claim? Next item, please.
Next is item 8, approving an advertising agreement between the City of Lincoln Parks and Rec, City Golf Courses, and Benchcraft Company, which will provide revenue from advertisement at all 5 municipal golf courses and will provide scorecards, benches, and other supplies and equipment for each course at no cost.
Jerry Shoney with Lincoln Parks and Recreation, Councilman. It has come to light that there's maybe some conflicting language in this agreement that is not as standard as some other city contracts. So with the council's indulgence, I would like to ask for a delay for 1 week so that we can standardize the contract language here. I think StarTran probably is a good model for us to copy, but we'd just like to get this cleaned up a little bit.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other questions? Any questions? Somebody want to move that?
I'll move for a 1 week delay since
Second.
I'm doing that a lot.
Seconded by Roy.
That's just for action only, or do you want continued public hearing?
With continued public hearing, I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? Call a roll.
Christensen?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you. Next item.
Item number 9, approving an agreement between the City of Lincoln and Nebraska Game and Parks Commission for a recreational trails program project grant to fund construction of the Pioneers Park Trail Phase 3.
Terry Genrick with Lincoln Parks and Recreation. Last fall, I was before council and got your approval to apply for this grant. We found out in January that we were awarded funding for this project, and this agreement basically is between the city and Game and Parks that will initiate this project to move forward.
Thank you. Questions? Lorianne?
Yes.
Thanks, Terry. I noticed in the contract that it said that there's a 20-80 percentage split with
Yes.
the state, Nebraska Games and Parks Commission, that the ultimate amount will depend on federal funding. And the contract's written so it says that we will pay at least 20% with the amount ultimately determined by the state. What happens if they come back with a much higher number? How common is that? Do you expect how likely is it that we will be able to kind of keep to our estimated amount? And if it is more significant, what's the backup plan?
Well, you never know when projects are bid out, but I think if the amount is an exorbitant amount of money, that we could very well go back to the funding agency to see if they would be willing to provide more. The matching funds for this are actually not city tax dollars, and we could very well go back to the donors to receive the additional funds to make it happen.
Okay. And I think there was a difference between the amount of the non-city contribution as listed on the fact sheet versus the contract. It's not a huge amount in difference, but I guess which one is the correct amount?
Well, the correct amount's going to be in this agreement.
Okay.
Carl? Thank you. Terry, this is Phase 3. Is this
Right.
the western phase of the trail?
That's correct. This gets us all the way to the western border of Pioneers Park.
Okay. And there's been some discussion about a possible development on beyond that point at some time in the future. Would this then hook up to that
Yes.
proposed trail?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
correct.
Questions? Thank you, Terry.
Okay.
Anybody like to speak to this item? Staff questions? Next item, please.
All right, next I'll call item 10, approving an interlocal agreement between the city and Lancaster County relating to the completion of various road grading, road paving, road maintenance, restoration, resurfacing, and rehabilitation projects involving sections of roadway located both inside city limits and county limits.
Roger Feigert, Public Works. Pam Dingman has graciously said she'd be here today. Several months ago, this body passed an interlocal agreement that was primarily focused on phased annexation and growth of the city into the county. And in that case, it made sense for the city to build urban infrastructure out into the county adjacent to areas that were going to be annexed, but allow the developer to phase his annexation so they didn't bring in more property than what they were ready to develop. They didn't lose their green belt. So that was us building city infrastructure in the county. We really no more than got that finished and realized that within the county's 1- and 6-year program, there are 3 of Pam's projects that she's proposing to overlay, which start and pass through a portion of the city limits. All of those roadways are 2-lane county roads today, and the portion that abuts the city, it doesn't make any sense to not maintain and do preventative maintenance on them the same way that Pam would. So the agreement that's before you is really written as a reciprocal agreement. The county has a project, starts in the county, goes a distance, touches the city property, and it's appropriate for it to be maintained to a county standard. They do the work to start with. They would prepare, either of us would prepare plans, estimates, cost, and upon agreement between the county engineer's office, city engineer's office, and funding available, they could move ahead and do that project, and then the city or the county would simply reimburse. And I might point out very quickly, that is...
And I can say Pam Dingman, Lancaster County Engineer, 444 Cherry Creek Drive, Building B. If you look at the map where it says Highway 2, and Roger can point because my arm isn't quite long enough, right here, Roger. So we currently have, through our previous interlocal agreement with you, it's a city project that is in the city, then it's in the county, then it's in the city. So for that project, I will be reimbursing, my department will be reimbursing the city the cost of the overlay that is in the county. But as we near the intersection, at this location, we are in the county, then we're in the city, then we're in the county. So it doesn't really make sense to mobilize the paver out there, overlay, pick up on the city line, walk that paver across your jurisdiction, and drop back down and then start overlaying. So that's where I approached Mr. Feigard and said, you know, in order to get the most efficient infrastructure, I think our departments really need to start working together more. And what if in these 3 areas this year that we work together in order to create a contiguous line of pavement, city, whether it went city, county, or county, city, county, right, Roger?
Yes.
On some of the areas where we kind of have those meandering boundaries in order to create consistent new pavement.
2 other examples. One is Holdridge Street that starts at about 88th and goes clear to 148. The city has approximately just a little less than a mile in that area. The other piece is on South 70th that starts south of Pine Lake and goes all the way down to Saltillo. There's about a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile down there that is in the city as well. So I think this is another example of cooperation and trying to work together for efficiency.
Questions? Jonathan?
So regarding snow removal or pothole repair, this is just for these projects?
For these projects, this agreement clearly only has to do with the maintenance and the maintenance repair part of the project. We will continue to do snow removal and our own maintenance according to our other interlocal agreements.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody who'd like to speak to this item? Thank you for your help.
I'd just like to say to Pam, thank you for sitting through all that to get to this.
Well, I am really happy to have Mr. Feigard as a partner in taking care of our infrastructure, and we're really looking forward to a lot more of these interlocal agreements in order to bring the best infrastructure to our citizens.
Great, thank you very much. Next item, please.
Their public hearing ordinances second reading. I'll call items 11 and 12 together. They are annexation 15001, amending the Lincoln corporate limits map by annexing approximately 22.5 acres of property generally located at North 94th and Adams Street. And item 12 is change of zone 05054B, application of Storosky Lewis to amend the Prairie Village North Planned Unit Development to expand the area of the PUD by changing the zoning from AG Agricultural to R3 Residential PUD, and for approval of amendments to the development plan to allow for an additional 155 lots for residential dwelling units on property generally located at North 90th and Adams Street.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Mike Eckert, appearing on behalf of Strostica Lewis LLC. This is pretty straightforward change of zone and annexation for the Prairie Village North PUD, which was approved back in 2007, and a large portion of it was annexed, and we're now getting out to the areas that were not annexed with the growth. So, again, pretty straightforward in terms of the, it's already been, the amendments to the PUDs have also been approved by Planning Commission, so.
Questions? Glad to see the growth out in that area. They were both of these were recommended by the Planning Commission 8-0, so thank you. Anybody who'd like to speak to this item?
I was hoping maybe there's no staff to ask, so can I just share some information about this item?
Sure.
Or is that appropriate?
Sure.
Okay. Well, so again, this is just an opportunity to highlight that we are a growing city, and I think there's a lot of support for that growth. And in this particular item, there is a mention in the staff report that the nearest fire station is at Tusalin Avenue and Fremont Street. And I just checked in with Director Cassidy about the emergency response time from that location to this growth area of our city, and it's 5 minutes and 35 seconds, which is, again, a minute and a half over what the recommended 4-minute standard. So, again, just keep in mind that as we annex new land, we are going to continue to increase the number of homes that fall outside the minimum emergency response time, which is why, as we do this, we need to continue to have conversation about ensuring public safety, not just fire, but police and medical services to these growing areas of our city. They certainly deserve to have access to services in a reasonable and safe time frame, and that's a very important priority for our city.
And which is why we recommended that there be a fire station at 84th and Holdridge, or in that area, Layton, roughly. Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to speak to this item? Next item, please.
That concludes our public hearing portion. We can move into the
Please
voting
do.
session.
Thank you.
All right, public hearing resolutions. Item 7 is the report of claims for the period of February 16th through the 28th. This was introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I'm sorry, Carl?
Yes, thanks, Doug. I don't remember ever seeing a claim form with this many potholes and damages from snow removal. It really did seem to be extreme, and we just had demonstration today of some technology that hopefully will help alleviate these things. Really was. This is painful. Every time we have somebody come before us that is a situation that we cannot legally remedy, and so the fewer of these we have, the better. And so just hopeful that this winter will not be repeated in future winters. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call a roll.
Christensen?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 9 is approving an agreement between the city and Nebraska Game and Parks, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call a roll.
Christensen?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Are we voting on the requested delay?
This is on item 9.
We
Oh,
already
I'm
did.
sorry, I thought you were
We
on.
already
Sorry.
voted on those.
Apologize.
Okay.
Yes.
No problem.
And Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 10 is the interlocal between the city and the county, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call a roll.
Christensen?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Eskridge?
Yes.
Fellers?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Public hearing ordinances second reading are items 11 and 12. Ordinances third reading, item 13, amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter A to change the pay range of utilities, safety, and training specialist from A11 to A13, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery.
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 14 is adopting the supplements to the Lincoln Municipal Code dated June 2014 and December 2014 as part of the official Lincoln Municipal Code, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook, Emery.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 15 is change of zone 05061B, application of Nebraska Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association to amend the development plan of the Southwest Village Planned Unit Development to adjust sign locations and height on property generally located at Highway 77 and West Denton Road, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery.
Yes.
Eskridge. Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 16 is text amendment 15001. This is various changes to chapter 27, introduced by Camp.
So moved.
Second by Trent. Discussion? Well, I would like to issue an apology to the gentleman sitting here this evening, and it got a little crazy last week. Maybe I should have not allowed the questions to be asked by someone else. So I apologize to you for that. Call the roll, please.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery.
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Resolutions on first reading are items 17 and 18. First reading are items 19 through 23. On item 22, we did have a request to delay first reading for 1 week to March 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Eskridge.
Yes.
Fellers.
Yes.
Gaylor Baird.
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Our pending list is item 24. We did have a request from Public Works to withdraw this item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trent, seconded by Roy. Discussion? Call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Eskridge, Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. I will note for the record, in my 25 years as being in the city clerk's office, we have never not had a pending list.
Chair, I'd move for adjournment, but also wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow.
Second.
Seconded by Roy. Discussion?
How many of those hats do you have?
Call the roll. Too many. Call the roll, please.
Christensen,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Eskridge,
Yes.
Fellers,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Camp.
Of course, yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned. Thank you.